So I get a text from a church leader.
Hey, Duncan, I love the Further Faster message.
That's great.
Yeah, and I get that we're going to have to make some changes if we are going to grow our church by reaching unchurched people.
Okay.
And I get that it might get a little messy, and people will want to go back to how it used to be. And some may even want to leave.
And your question?
How do I get my trustees, staff, elders, deacons, and volunteers on board with all these changes?
It's a great question, and I get it a lot. And my answer? Start with the end in mind. If you love the Harry Potter films, you'll know that the character Snape is played by the actor Alan Rickman. But what you might not know is Rickman was about to quit the franchise after just 2 films. That was right up until J.K. Rowling sat him down and told him a secret about Snape that he had no idea about. And that made him stay on. She had a vision for how the story would end. He didn't. So what's the end in mind for your church? I mean, just business as usual? Sermons, songs, small groups for the next 60 years? Or is it a more compelling climax where people who are far from God get found? Now, as a church leader, you're responsible for the story your church writes in your community. J.K. Rowling was trying to present a story that no one had ever seen before. And you're trying to create a church that your community has never seen before. So you've got to make sure everyone knows where the journey's going. I mean, imagine starting a race without any idea where to find the finish line. Bang! Gun goes off, people start running in every direction. Imagine starting a new church or a midweek program or a Sunday service where people have no idea what the win looks like. I mean, wouldn't it mean that people would just make up their own win and start running in all kinds of directions? The sad truth is that over time, most churches default to keeping people and not reaching people. But if you start with the end in mind and you keep it high in every leadership conversation, it'll help you and your team stay laser focused and running in the same direction. Starting with the end in mind all comes down to casting vision. And some people will believe in your church vision because it helps them personally. Other people believe in your church vision enough to give a little bit of money towards it. But what you really need in order for your church to grow is people who give their very lives to your church vision. And in order for that to happen, you're going to have to cast a creative and a consistent and a compelling vision to your people. Recently, I put a church leadership team I was coaching into 3 different groups, and I asked them one simple question. I asked them to write down their church vision. Would you believe it? I got 3 different answers. We talk about running in different directions. So let me ask you 3 clarifying questions. Number 1, if you were to ask your team right now, can you articulate our church vision? What would they say? Number 2, what would happen to your church if your staff and volunteers don't understand or don't embrace your vision? And number 3, does everyone know what you as a church are here to do? Listen, if you are even slightly shaky on the answers to any of these questions, you've got some very important work to do. And you know it's urgent work, because no leader wants their people running off in different directions, right? So here's your 4-point plan for casting a compelling vision. Number 1, make it simple. One church proudly showed me their glossy 15-page vision document recently. Man, it looked expensive, but nobody knew it and nobody followed it. Why? Because it was too long. It was too complicated. So ask yourself, is our church vision simple or complex? Can it fit on the front of a t-shirt? Is it memorable or is it forgettable? Remember this equation: simplicity plus clarity equals portability. You create some portable language and your people will carry it easily. Number 2, make it convincing. Find creative, compelling ways to cast your vision. Here's how you do it. 3 simple steps. Number 1, start by highlighting the problem you've come together as a church to solve. Number 2, talk about the unique solution you think God has given you. And number 3, finish by stating why you are the people called to do it, and do it now. Don't inform people about your vision, inspire them with your vision. Number 3, repeat it regularly. I use every email I send, every one-to-one meeting I hold, every good news story I tell to make sure vision casting is woven into the rhythm of our ministry. So where do you currently share your vision? How can you regularly program it into your church schedule? And how often are you currently repeating your vision to your team and to your church? Maybe you need to ask yourself, what did I do today to cast vision to my team or the church? And finally, 4thly, embrace it personally. Okay, I get it, this is a tough one, but why would you expect anyone in your church to do what you're not prepared to do? So don't vision cast for groups if you're not in a life-giving group. Don't talk about sacrificial giving if you're not digging deep. And don't talk about inviting friends if you haven't got any friends to invite to church. It's one bite at a time, right? Here are 3 simple bites you can take today. Number 1, start where you are. Stop comparing yourself to other churches. Start facing your own reality as you create a compelling vision for your church. Number 2, use what you have. All right, you don't have a Disney budget or a huge staff team, but you don't get to where you want to be by wishing you had more. You get there by using what you have at your disposal right now. And number 3, do what you can. What can you do today to cast vision? Ask this question of your team. Make it part of the ongoing leadership conversation. Don't put it off for a later date. So starting with the end in mind might be as simple as inviting your friend to church with you next Sunday and thinking about what they'll experience. Ask yourself a couple of questions. Number 1, what do you want them to experience? And number 2, what do you not want them to experience? Honestly, these 2 questions make you see your church from a whole different perspective. That's starting with the end in mind. And when you know the answers to these 2 questions, it'll shape how you create the story of your church from here on in.